The air crackled with tension, a palpable sense of unease hanging over the city like a dark cloud. People went about their morning routines, unaware that their lives were about to be irrevocably changed. Suddenly, gunfire erupted, shattering the morning calm and sending shockwaves through the community. The sharp staccato bursts of automatic weapons fire echoed off the buildings, creating a cacophony of chaos. It was February 28, 1997, a day that would forever be etched in the annals of Los Angeles history. The events that unfolded on this fateful morning would leave an indelible mark on the city and its people. On that day, the bustling streets of North Hollywood became a war zone. What was once a peaceful neighborhood was transformed into a battleground with bullets flying and sirens wailing. Two heavily armed men clad in body armor and armed with an arsenal of weapons held the city hostage in a terrifying display of firepower. Their brazen actions would test the limits of law enforcement and the resilience of the community. This was no ordinary bank robbery. It was a scene straight out of a Hollywood action film, but with very real and deadly consequences. The robbers were prepared for a prolonged standoff, and they had the firepower to back it up. The North Hollywood Shootout, as it came to be known, was a watershed moment in American law enforcement. It highlighted the need for better equipment and training for police officers facing increasingly dangerous criminals. It exposed the vulnerabilities of police departments facing heavily armed criminals. The officers on the scene were outgunned and outmatched, forced to take cover behind their patrol cars as bullets whizzed past them. The images of outgunned police officers, desperately seeking cover from a hail of bullets, shocked the nation. It was a stark reminder of the dangers that law enforcement officers face every day. This was not the Wild West. This was Los Angeles in the late 20th century, and it was a wake-up call for a nation grappling with the rising tide of gun violence. The shootout underscored the need for a comprehensive approach to addressing the issue. The shootout lasted for an excruciating 44 minutes, leaving an indelible mark on the city and its people. The prolonged gun battle tested the resolve of the officers and the community as they endured the relentless onslaught. The deafening roar of gunfire echoed through the streets, sending shockwaves of fear through the hearts of terrified residents. People ran for cover, their lives turned upside down by the violence that had erupted in their midst. The robbers, armed to the teeth and seemingly invincible in their body armor, seemed unstoppable. Their firepower and determination made them a formidable foe, one that the police struggled to contain. They unleashed a torrent of bullets at anything that moved, turning a normal day into a nightmare. The relentless gunfire left a trail of destruction in its wake, forever altering the landscape of North Hollywood. The North Hollywood Shootout wasn't just a gun battle, it was a defining moment that reshaped the landscape of American law enforcement. This intense confrontation between police officers and heavily armed bank robbers marked a turning point in the history of American policing. It forced law enforcement agencies across the country to confront a chilling reality. They were outgunned and outmatched by criminals who were better equipped and more prepared for violent encounters. The robbers, Larry Phillips Jr. and Emil Matasorenu, were armed with military-grade weaponry capable of penetrating standard police body armor. Their arsenal included fully automatic rifles, armor-piercing ammunition, and an array of other high-powered firearms. This realization sent shockwaves through police departments nationwide, prompting a reevaluation of their preparedness and capabilities. It became painfully clear that the days of officers facing down criminals armed with just handguns and shotguns were long gone. The new reality demanded a significant shift in strategy and equipment. The new breed of criminal was heavily armed and prepared to engage in a firefight with law enforcement, putting innocent lives at risk. This was a stark wake-up call for police agencies across the nation. The shootout served as a catalyst for change, igniting a nationwide conversation about police tactics, training, and equipment. In its aftermath, police departments began to reassess their tactics and equipment. There was a renewed emphasis on officer training, particularly in the areas of active shooter response and high-risk warrant service. Training programs were overhauled to include more realistic scenarios, ensuring that officers were better prepared for the types of high-stakes situations they might encounter. The need for greater firepower became evident, leading to the widespread adoption of patrol rifles and tactical gear, including heavier body armor, by police departments across the country. This shift was essential to ensure that officers could effectively respond to heavily armed threats. The shootout also highlighted the importance of interagency cooperation. The chaotic events of that day underscored the need for better communication and coordination among different law enforcement agencies. During the North Hollywood shootout, multiple law enforcement agencies, including the Los Angeles Police Department, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, responded to the scene. However, the lack of coordinated communication and a unified command structure hampered their initial response. This incident underscored the critical need for a unified command structure and seamless communication channels during such high-pressure situations. In the years following the shootout, significant efforts were made to improve interagency communication and coordination, ensuring a more effective and cohesive response to future crises. Who were these men who brought terror to the streets of North Hollywood? Larry Phillips Jr. and Emil Matasareanu were no ordinary criminals. They were products of a broken system fueled by anger, resentment, and a thirst for violence. Their path to infamy began long before that fateful day, with a series of petty crimes that escalated into a deadly obsession. Phillips, the older of the two, was the mastermind behind the operation. He was a volatile individual prone to fits of rage and violence. His criminal record was a litany of petty theft, firearms violations, and assaults. Matasareanu, on the other hand, was a quiet, unassuming man, often described as a follower rather than a leader. He met Phillips at a local gym and they quickly bonded over their shared interest in firearms and their disdain for authority. Their friendship soon morphed into a deadly partnership. They began robbing banks together, their crimes becoming increasingly brazen and violent. They meticulously studied police tactics, learning how to exploit weaknesses and evade capture. Their goal was not just to steal money, it was to engage in a war against law enforcement, to prove their superiority over the very people sworn to protect society. The North Hollywood shootout was not a spur-of-the-moment crime. It was the culmination of months of meticulous planning. This was not just a random act of violence, but a carefully orchestrated operation designed to maximize impact and minimize the chances of failure. The perpetrators, Larry Phillips Jr. and Emil Matasareanu, were meticulous in their approach, leaving no stone unturned in their preparation. Phillips and Matasareanu were obsessed with detail, studying police manuals, practicing their shooting skills at remote desert locations, and modifying their weapons for maximum firepower. They spent countless hours at secluded gun ranges, honing their marksmanship and ensuring their weapons were in perfect working order. Their dedication to preparation was almost military in its precision, reflecting their determination to succeed at any cost. Their goal was to create a spectacle of violence, to make a statement that would reverberate throughout the city and beyond. They wanted to instill fear and chaos, to show that they were a force to be reckoned with. This was not just about money, it was about power and control, about making a mark on the world in the most dramatic way possible. They chose their target carefully, the Bank of America branch on Laurel Canyon Boulevard. This particular branch was known for its large cash reserves, making it an attractive target for anyone looking to make a big score. But it wasn't just the money that drew them to this location. It was also the strategic advantages it offered. It was a large branch, known to hold a significant amount of cash, and its location provided multiple escape routes. The busy streets surrounding the bank meant that there would be plenty of cover and opportunities to evade capture. They meticulously planned their entry and exit routes, ensuring that they had multiple options in case things went wrong. They cased the bank for weeks, observing its routines, security measures, and the patterns of the police patrols in the area. They took note of the times when the bank was busiest and when it was most vulnerable. They studied the placement of security cameras and the habits of the bank employees, looking for any weaknesses they could exploit. They even went as far as timing the response times of the local police to simulated bank robbery calls. This level of detail in their planning was unprecedented, showing just how serious they were about pulling off this heist. They wanted to know exactly how much time they had before the police would arrive, allowing them to plan their actions down to the second. Their preparations went beyond just planning the robbery itself. They also prepared for the inevitable confrontation with law enforcement, knowing that a shootout was almost certain. They studied tactical maneuvers and practiced their responses to various scenarios, ensuring that they were ready for anything that might happen. They were determined to survive the inevitable confrontation with the police, and they took extraordinary measures to ensure their survival. They crafted homemade body armor, using materials that could withstand multiple handgun rounds. This armor was designed to protect their vital organs and give them a fighting chance in a prolonged gun battle. They outfitted their bodies with homemade body armor, capable of withstanding multiple handgun rounds. They tested this armor rigorously, making sure it could hold up under the most extreme conditions. This level of preparation showed just how far they were willing to go to achieve their goals. They acquired a small arsenal of weapons, including fully automatic AK-47 rifles, modified to fire thousands of rounds per minute, and high-capacity magazines, each capable of holding hundreds of rounds of ammunition. This firepower was intended to give them a significant advantage over the police, allowing them to dominate any confrontation and make their escape.